Good afternoon. My name is Jo Kreiter, and I am coming to you as a guest of the Contemporary Arts Center today. I am a choreographer and site artist based in San Francisco and have been invited by the CAC to join a conversation with Kathy Randels and Ausettua Amor, Amenkum. And they are two amazing women who are the founders of an arts program called The Graduates. And I'm so excited to be here and bring forward this dialogue as part of the Intersector series. And this third segment of the Intersector series focuses on decarceration and the arts. And something that all three of us have in common is a relationship to incarceration through our work as working artists, and also a desire to see an end to mass incarceration. So with that in mind, I'd like to open the conversation asking Kathy a question. Can you tell me about how the Drama Club came to be and how the Graduates came to be? And can you tell me how this work is important to you?
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to be here with y'all today. So when I was in college at Northwestern University, my final performance project was a piece called Rage Within Without. That was an exploration of anger, aggression, and violence in women. And I premiered it at the Spare Rib Theater Festival, the first women's theater festival at Northwestern. And about 3 years later, a good friend of mine, Derek Goldman from Street Signs Theater Company, reached out to me and said, "Would you be willing to perform that piece again?" And I said, "Yeah, I would," but it was very much an academic college piece. If I do it again, I'd actually really like to talk to women who committed murder. And he said, "Okay, good luck with that." And through an interesting course of events that I can't go into because our time is too limited, I got to know the lawyers involved in the Illinois Clemency project for battered women. It was a big campaign in 1994 to get clemency for 16 women in the state of Illinois who had been incarcerated for killing their abusive spouses or partners. 5 law schools in Chicago partnered on this program. And I interviewed about 4 or 5 of those women, and 2 of their stories became a part of Rage Within Without. And at the end of each performance, we used it as a call to action to sign petitions to send to Governor Ryan to ask for their clemency. At that time, 4 of the women were granted clemency and 12 were not. So the odds then are about as bad as the odds are today. And anyway, that gets into Mama Glow, but I'm gonna get back to the drama club. One of the women I spoke with in Illinois said, when you go back to Louisiana, because I shared with her that I was moving back home in '95, you should work with incarcerated women. And I was like, and it was like, okay. And I, interestingly enough, the CAC is a part of this story. There was a grant at the CAC called the Regional Artist Project grant through the National Endowment for the Arts. And I applied for it and got it and did, the proposal was a 6-month workshop at Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women and a performance of Rage Within Without. And I did that. There were 16 women, amazingly enough, that had been handpicked by the social worker at LCIW at the time. Her name is Lorraine Gibson. And at the end of the 6-month workshop, a woman named Cheryl Cahey, who is, rest in peace, founder of both the Drama Club and the Graduates, said, "Now, Kathy, you know you're not going to leave us, right?" And it was another, "You're right, I'm not going to leave you. I can't leave you." And so 4 years later, my friend Roscoe Reddix, who I had gone to NOCA with in theater, we were talking, we were doing a project with some high school students in the Lower Ninth Ward called Lower Nine Stories. And I was telling him that this work with the women in the prison was kicking my ass. And And he said, well, you know, I think you should reach out to my director with Kumbuka, Ausettua, Amor, Amenkum. I think she would be kind of amazing. And so I reached out to Ausettua, Amor, Amenkum. And 20 years later, she's still stuck with me.
20 years.
It's crazy. But yeah, she came with 2 drummers from Kumbuka, Zohar Israel and Brother T, Tyrone Henry. And they did another 6-month performance project called Gifts of Our Ancestors and brought their amazing expertise in West African dance to that project. And at the end of that project, Cheryl Cahey and I think a few others said, now, Ausettua, you know you're not going to leave, right? And take it away, Ausettua.
Yeah, they had a plan. Yeah, so the work that, what's unique about Kathy and I working together, Kathy's background is primarily theater, and my background is primarily dance. However, we both overlap. I'm quite the theater person, and she can be a dancer as well, but that was the expertise we brought, so we complemented each other very well. And if you know anything about theater and dance, the 2 disciplines have different ways of approaching art. But it kind of complemented. It actually worked out pretty well. So as a result of that, the work was so great. It had such an effect on the women that were in the prison. The performances was always looked forward to. People were like wanting to sign up because unfortunately at the prison, everybody could not see the performances. You had to sign up on a sheet of paper. They would only allow 200 or 300 in. So everyone, we had a reputation, not just for putting on good shows, but for providing a safe space for the women to share their most deepest thoughts and regrets and emotions without fear that it would be repeated back on the compound, without ridicule and without judgment. And apparently that was a void that we had filled. So fast forward, when the women would get out, they said, we want to continue this work once we get out. And fortunately for us, many of them came to the New Orleans area. And that's when The Graduates was born. The name came from Cheryl Cahey, who is now deceased, because she said she felt that if you survive prison, you have graduated from the hardest school of the hardest knocks. And so that's how the name came about. And in 2012, The Graduates was born. At this time, we only have one member who's still an original member. Because as you know, when women get out of prison, their main goal is not to become a professional performer. They have so much other adjustment that they need to do. So Kathy and I had to learn that even though they desire to be a part of a performing group, they still needed that adjustment time with their families, with their education, with their health. You know, it's just a whole decarceration process that we had to be mindful of. So The Graduates, we did our first performance. And when we say performance, I don't know if that's the best word for it, because it is what it is, but these are real stories that these women have actually lived. And what Kathy and I do, we shape them. You know, we take their stories and we see if it will be best implemented through a dance, through a poem, through a choral poem, through something that's written, but it's always their words, their story, their experience. And what we have found is that every time they performed, the audiences were so moved, because they always hear about men in incarceration, but they rarely heard about women in incarceration. So we were filling this void where what happened to the women when they got incarcerated. So The Graduates, we've been very lucky, very fortunate. We started off with one small grant of the emerging, the Emerging Philanthropists of New Orleans. And then from there, we are recipients of the Rauschenberg Fellows. We have performed in New York at least 4 times, Virginia, Florida, DC, Alabama. We have performed for several conferences. And what we have found is that it's not so unique that women are telling their stories. It's how they're telling their stories. And that is, I have to say, Kathy and I are doing a pretty decent job in getting it to the point where it's on the stage without compromising the integrity of the story and without exploiting them. Because you really need to be mindful when you work with people who have real experiences. It's very important that they don't feel like you're using them and they're being exploited. So fast forward to 2020, well, let's start with the Rauschenberg. When we got that grant for art as activism, we had to come up with a project that kind of epitomized how art can be used to call attention to situations and factors with women being incarcerated. We came up with this concept to do a quilt. We wanted to highlight there was 107 women serving life sentences in 2016. Because I'm a member of the Black Masking Indians, I know a lot of Indians who sew, and we wanted to get them to sew the names of all the women, beat it and sequence it. And then it was put together, sewn together. And then that particular quilt, we had B. Mike. I don't know if you ever heard of B. Mike, but he's a phenomenal graphic artist. He did a picture of Mary Turner, a founding member of the drama club, who is now deceased also. We want to feature her in the middle of the quilt. And the quilt is called the Life Quilt. And that quilt right now is presently on exhibit in New York at the Ford Foundation. It started off at the Persister exhibit here at Tulane University, which is an exhibit that was focused on using art specifically to call attention to the factors with women and incarceration. So we were really, really, really lucky and happy and pleased to be a part of that, but the work still continues. So I'm going to stop there so you can ask some more questions.
Cool. So I'm glad you spoke about, looking through a lens that really looks at women's experiences. As a choreographer and also as a woman with an incarcerated loved one, I have made a piece called The Weight Room that centers the experience of women with incarcerated loved ones. So I think the graduates, the drama club, and I are telling two different sides of the same coin. And it's so exciting to be in dialogue with you all. And next year, the CAC is hosting a series of programs that's going to feature your work and my work. And I guess my question for you, Kathy, because you've seen The Weight Room and your work with Ausettua very intimately, what do you think is the best thing that audiences get from seeing decarceral work happen as art?
A wake-up call.
Awesome.
I think it really humanizes the issue. I think for people who either have been incarcerated or have a loved one or a family member who has been incarcerated, there's an element of, oh my God, finally, someone is talking about me and my life and what I have been through. And for people who don't have any experience with that, I think it really, just like good old COVID-19, opens people's eyes to our criminal justice system and our carceral system here in the United States of America, and how corrupt it is, how demonizing it is to the people, and how debilitating it is to the people. And so, we've really used it. It's interesting because with the drama club, Ausettua and I think really felt like our work was about healing. We were really there to be, in many cases, we became family to a lot of these women, and they have become family to us. And then with the graduates, especially with the Rauschenberg Fellowship. So I just need to add that the way we met Jo Kreiter is that she is also a Robert Rauschenberg Racial Justice Fellow. And we met for the first time in Detroit at the gathering of it was actually a gathering of the Soros Criminal Justice Fellows. And the Rauschenberg Racial Justice Fellows came at that same time. And it blew my mind. It was an amazing, amazing gathering to see all of these people coming. And it's not just artists from the Soros end of things. Rauschenberg was artist activists, but the Soros realm, you had You had lawyers, you had statistical people, you had policy people, you had healing, reform.
Yeah, I think it was the best artist and activist environment I could have possibly dreamed up. And I'm, forever grateful to the Rauschenberg Foundation for inviting us.
Yeah.
But as we head toward wrapping up the conversation, I want to ask you about Mama Glow, and I want to ask you about what people can do right now as they're watching this small podcast to support getting folks out of prison. So tell us about Mama Glow and tell us what's needed there.
Oh, the story of Mama Glow just brings such anxiety to us. I'm gonna try to do it as compact as I can. Mama Glow is like the mother of the drama club. We call her Mama Glow. The women call her Mama Glow because she has mentored so many women in that facility,
Including us.
including yeah, we were thinking, oh, we're gonna go to the prison and we're gonna teach these women all kind of stuff. Man, it was like sitting at the feet of your elders. They had so much wisdom to impart, and Mama Glow always took her picture and poured it out into anybody who would receive it. So Mama Glow, one of the longest serving women incarcerated in the state of Louisiana, almost 50 years being incarcerated for a crime that she has admitted to doing. She was an accomplice in a robbery where the victim was shot and killed. She did not shoot the victim, but you know in Louisiana, if you're with the perpetrator, you're going to get the sentence as well. The strange story is that there were 3 people involved in this crime. One woman died 15 years ago. The man who actually pulled the trigger, he's been out for over 10 years. And Mama Glow is she's still incarcerated. But even more so, she contracted the virus. So she was in for the fight of her life at the hospital without any information being given hardly to the family, friends, and supporters. And so what Kathy was saying earlier, but she didn't get to it, was that when we were in LCIW, we were more like in the healing business. With the graduates, we are more on the activist side because there's such a need to call this attention. I never realized how many people live in a bubble. We're all guilty of it. We don't really realize it, but we're in a bubble. Your bubble is, I go to Starbucks, I go to Whole Foods, I go to my gym, I go here, there, and that's your world. And unless you have a loved one or someone you know, or you've been directly impacted by the incarceration system, you're like blind to that whole situation. So, Mama Glow right now is no longer in ICU. She has been shipped back to the prison that already has 85% of the women infected by the virus. And if you know anybody who contacted the virus, your recovery period is just as intense as when you're going through the actual virus, right? So we got some disappointing news today that she's still struggling, oxygen level low, blood pressure high. So we're steadily praying. We did a series of prayer conferences, prayer calls. We've had 2 prayer vigils. We're trying to find a very positive, non-agitating way to encourage the governor to let Mama Glow, because as you know, Mama Glow has already been recommended for a pardon by the pardon board unanimously. The pardon board unanimously recommended that she be free. The staff and the board of,
Sorry, almost a year ago, July 22nd, 2019, she was recommended for pardon.
Right. The warden and the whole staff of the prison recommended she should be free. So her papers are sitting on the governor's desk along with 14 other women waiting for his signature. So, I'm exhausted by the whole concept. I just don't understand. We got the virus going on. It would seem to make sense that the governor would want to release somebody who is sick and let her family take care of him, but I'm not in his head. But Kathy has been praying for the arm of love to take over his hand, where he can sign that paper. So we really are focused on all of our actions. We have a Mama Glow campaign, which is led by the Participatory Defense Movement with Fox Rich and her husband, Rob Rich. and the graduates. We are spearheading, and also Voice of the Experience. We are spearheading several initiatives to bring attention to these women, not just incarcerated, but the ones that's incarcerated in an environment with the COVID-19 on top of it. They can't shelter. They can't social distance because, as you know, Kathy, tell them about the flood and how that whole thing exasperates them being at Hunts and in Jetson.
Yeah. So, we're in Louisiana, and Louisiana floods a lot. And usually it's the lower coast close to the Gulf that floods. But in 2016, the Baton Rouge area in the middle of the state flooded. LCIW is in St. Gabriel, Louisiana. And LCIW was completely flooded. It looked like Armageddon. They had women, they told the women, you get 2 bags, pack them, come, stand outside. They shackled them together while in buses, drove them like for 14 hours all around the state trying to figure out where to put them. They deposited half of them in a facility called Jetson, which is outside of Baton Rouge in Baker, Louisiana. And then they brought the rest of them back right next door to LCIW in St. Gabriel, Louisiana, a facility called Hunt Correctional Institute, which is a men's prison. What's that?
No, I'm saying Jetson was a closed facility.
A closed youth facility.
Yeah,
women had to clean up mold, bug carcasses, and the water when it came out of the spout was brown and rusty and disgusting. So yeah, they had to provide the labor for their own conditions, and in both facilities they are living in open dorms with bunk beds. They're 2 feet apart. I've never seen them. Ivy, who you spoke with last week, lived in those conditions, so she can talk about it firsthand. But there is no way to social distance in either of those facilities. So, when
it is the common story with prisons. I mean, they are an impossible situation in terms of managing the virus.
Yeah, we had one of our drama club members shared with us that that they were out of hot water, and they were they had to bathe out of buckets of cold water during the pandemic. Super sanitary conditions. So it's very frustrating. We get news, we think we're coming up, and then we come back down, we get more bad news. So we're recording this on a Friday, and we're preparing for an action next Thursday that will have happened by the time this airs. So I want to share with you a little about the action. We're doing Glow Up for Mama Glow next Thursday, which will be last night. And we are going to release 50 lanterns on the Capitol at 7:40 p.m. next Thursday night in honor of Mama Glow's 74th year on the planet, 50 balloons for her 50 years of incarceration. We're going to have people sharing stories, love stories of how Mama Glow has touched their lives. And, we're just trying to keep her lifted because it's the only contact we can have. It's so frustrating that we can't talk to her. And I have to say, with back to the flood, that happened in the summer of 2016. And Mary Turner, who Ausettua referred to as the image in the center of the life quilt, she already had a lung condition when the flood hit in 2016, and we knew she wasn't doing well. And we weren't allowed back into the prison for over a year. And we kept saying, can we please just come in and visit the elders? Because we knew that one in particular was not doing well. And we just, we're her family. And we wanted to see one of our mamas. And the administration was like, no. And then, of course, she ended up in the hospital, the same hospital that Cheryl Cahey died in. Ausettua and I and 3 of the graduates surrounded her bedside when Cheryl Cahey passed in 2015. we didn't get to visit Mary Turner at that hospital. It's called Our Lady of the Lake in Baton Rouge. We weren't allowed to visit her, and she passed in December of 2017. And when Mama Glow ended up at that same hospital, Ausettua and I were like, we are not going to lose another one of our mothers at this hospital. But then bad got worse because she was sent back to the prison where she contracted the virus. And just one more thing, the governor has stated that he will release people who have more than 2 comorbidities for the disease and are at risk and elderly. And Mama Glow has more than 2 morbidities. She has it, and he still hasn't released it. So everyone is flabbergasted as to why he's not moving his hand. But we are not giving up.
I'm just really hopeful that you all are successful. It's really exciting to hear about, you know, an art-inspired rally. I love the lanterns released. I'm really grateful to the CAC for inviting us into conversation today and giving you all space to talk about your work. And you know, sometimes you free one woman and then there's more freedom coming. So we're going to invite folks to give a call to the governor about Mama Glow. It's just a very simple one phone call. There's one thing you do today, make the one phone call. And thank you all so much for joining me in conversation.
Wait, 1 second. Yeah, 1 second. We also want to encourage people to become involved. There are many organizations. There's national organizations, and in your area, I'm sure there are local activist organizations. We work with the National Council of Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. There's also Family and Friends of Incarcerated Persons, Releasing Aging Persons, Voice of the Experience, and those are the national ones. I'm sure in your area, if you're listening, there's a local organization. If you don't have the time, you can donate to these organizations who are doing these work. Many of these organizations are led by formerly incarcerated persons. And that's really, really exciting because they know the system and they're taking it hands-on and leading it. So I want to encourage all of you out there, there is something you can do. If you can't do that, if you're a business owner, hire a formerly incarcerated person. Give them an opportunity. If you own a house or a duplex, give them a place to stay, because part of the problem is they go to jail or do their time, but society is still very rigid about forgiving them in terms of having their time being served. So there's a lot that we can do. We gotta bust the bubble, you know, and put yourself in their shoes.
That's right. And to stay up to date on Mama Glow's case and information around that, please visit our Facebook page. It's Won't Bow Down, and Fox Rich's Facebook page. And thank you so much for entertaining this conversation today. Thank you, Jo.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Yeah, we can sing a song, Kathy. We can end with a song. You can end with singing Life Is. You know, we like to sing, we performers, right? But the women write music. So the next time when we do our performance, we will make sure that you guys get an opportunity to hear it. But there's a song that they wrote that sings Life Is.
Is where you going.
Life is.
Life is.
Where you been.
Where you been.
Life is.
Life is.
It's what you make it.
What you make it.
And life is.
Life is.
Happiness.
Happiness.
And life is.
Life is.
Where you going.
Where you going.
And life is.
Life is.
Where you been.
Where you been.
And to end with Mama Glow's words, Mama Glow says, man cannot give life. Only God gives life. Ashe.
Ashe, amen.
Amen. Amen. Deuces.